Welcome to Day Zero. Welcome to Day Zero. I'm here with Peter Mathews.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a long time coming in terms of doing a podcast together. You know, we've gone from being on opposite sides and opponents in the realtor versus real-time agent market share war that we previously went on. I think for listeners, to give a bit of context about you and your background is you've built a career in a huge real estate agency business. You've built a huge prop tech business. You've also been a past president of the REI New South Wales and a board member of the REIA. You've done a lot in your time, as well as being one of the leading auctioneers across Sydney. Give us a bit of background as to how you got started in real estate.
Oh, look, that's a long story, but I really appreciate the intro, and it's great to catch up. And it's good that we're finally doing something together, right? Which is great.
Yeah.
But look, I really only wanted to get into real estate for a couple of reasons. One is that I wanted to wear a suit and I wanted to work outside. And my dad was in the plumbing industry, and I kind of figured suits in the plumbing industry probably weren't going to work that well. But then I had an uncle who just became a valuer and started working for the Valuer Generals, and I thought, maybe real estate's a good thing to look at. So I was lucky enough to sort of write, do all that stuff right away, 65 letters to auctioneers, valuers and estate agents. And I remember I got 12 replies in one interview, and I bagged that job as what was the title? Office junior, I think was my title, which I hated. But it was a great opportunity because it was in Ray White Corporate, and they'd only just come to New South Wales about 2 years earlier.
Right.
So I was lucky enough to be amongst a great group of leaders who were, pioneers in their field really at expanding, a Queensland company into New South Wales, which, back in those days was a really, really tough thing to do.
Yeah. What was the moment where you knew, you've got this junior job that spans looks like a very broad JD by the sounds of it. Was there a moment where you're like, yeah, this industry's for me. I'm going to stick around. I'm going to build a career out of this? Yeah,
I'd say that probably, like most people, I think, who first get in the industry, because like it's an industry where you can see the opportunity and you can fall in love with it. Mm. But if you don't follow the process, you can kind of go through those waves where you don't have great times, and you sort of think to yourself, do I really want to be in a performance-based business?
Yep.
And I'd be lying to you if I said that over, particularly my early sales career, if I wasn't still looking in the classifieds at, sales jobs where you do get company cars and you've got higher value salaries. But probably I think, the moment that I realised that this is for me was, I guess after I was lucky when I was in the corporate office. I was there for about 18 months from when I was 18 years old. And I did a training course called the Accelerated Training Program, the ATP course. And because I was allowed to do that, for 2 days every single month, for 12 months, my ambition was one day to be able to train that course myself. So I had to learn it that well.
Yeah.
And whilst that was the ambition, the byproduct of that is that when I went into sales at 19 and I went into Bankstown, which was, I'd never been to Bankstown before in my life, but it was a highly multicultural area. So the powers that be thought it was a good place for me to be. I just had, this really strong training background that I knew the process, and I didn't know anything else other than to follow it. Mm. And once I realised that that's all it was just a process. There wasn't any secret to success. I just did what I was told to do, and it worked. And I knew then that this was a career that I could probably invest the rest of my tenure in, which I've done.
Yeah. Well done. I think you're a person who has been able to pick markets ahead of them actually being a market. Like, look at you co-founding Realtair, the businesses you've built in the past as well in the real estate agency space. Is there something or a way that you approach how you think about picking a market and how you think about identifying what's the right opportunity to go into?
You make me sound like I'm a strategist, but I'm actually not, to be honest. Like It's like you, when you're passionate about something, you've got this innate curiosity. And so you look at something and you say, well, why do we do it that way? Could we do it better? Is there something out there that we could do that could make life easier either for a customer or for your sales team or even for yourself as a leader and a business owner and things like that? So I don't sort of look at it and say, here's a market that's going to be something I can get into. At least I don't consciously do that. I look at things and I think, where's the opportunity to either make it better, or where's an opportunity to bring two things together?
Yeah.
And selfishly, Realtair, that what wasn't anything about providing the industry with a platform. It was about providing a solution to our three businesses. That was as fickle as it was. And once we kind of proved that out, we went, well, maybe it is something that we could provide to others. So it kind of built on from there. But I think that was the catalyst for me. Now I look at everything, probably like you, where you can't help yourself and you go, even when it's not our own industry, and you think, I wonder why they do it that way.
Yeah.
Like imagine if they had a bit of this or a bit of that, or particularly now with AI, you can build things so much quicker. You can solve so many problems so more quickly. So, I don't think I've got the strategy, at least not consciously, but it just happens.
Yeah, I think we were the same at Real Time Agent. We were the customer, the same as you, right? Like you're getting frustrated and you're curious. Why do we do things the way that we do them? And you become naturally curious. You end up chasing the bouncing ball, which is effectively passion to want to do things, want to innovate, want to make it better. But bringing it back to the basis is if you solve a problem for yourself as the customer, and you always have that lens on it, you'll generally win because your driving force first and foremost is not money. It's actually the passion that you've got that runs against it. The byproduct is the money that comes after it, right?
Yeah. And look, that seems elusive at the beginning. It's hard to raise capital. Yeah. You've got to do it off the back of your own, your own mortgages and all those sort of things. And there's no guarantee to any of that too. Like I think a lot of people, I've had a lot of people sort of, you've done really well. And they think that it's easy because they go, you created this and then you sold it. Like you don't know at the time that you're creating it if you will ever sell it. There's so many different options. You don't know, and there's a lot, you don't know whether you'll be part of that group that builds something really great but just can't get traction.
Yep.
And you invest all this time, energy and effort into something that's really valuable, but you never realize the real potential of that. So I feel, pretty fortunate that I've been able to do it, but I must admit now I'm a lot wiser now about how I would do it as opposed to when I first started it.
Yeah, it's interesting in going again with FOUNDIT, having gone on the journey with Real Time Agent, you make every mistake under the sun as the first time around. You're trying to make sure that you don't replicate some of the mistakes as well. And you kind of catch yourself even with the FOUNDIT journey already of like, no, I've been down, I know where this path is heading, and you start to roll down that path. You're like, no, I know what the outcome's going to be here.
Yeah.
Stay disciplined and come back to X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
It's hard. And I think coming back to what you were saying before about if you stick to the process and you follow the process, that will set you free over time. It's about building rigor, about building systems and processes that help you scale and succeed over time as well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So the team has found a quote from you as well. You've said that auctions are actually about connection. They're not just about and trust. They're not just about transactions.
Yeah.
How has your philosophy shaped how you work? I know that you continued to do auctioneering as you were doing it, running Realtair as well with Blake.
Yep.
How's it shaped how you approach business?
I think it's, I've been really lucky to be able to call auctions in a high volume, like 30,000 auctions. I think most people think that's probably not real, but it is. I was calling like 1,500 a year. I
remember when you gave me that stat and I was like, how old are you?
Yeah, I know.
Well, it's
53rd year this year, but 30, what is it, 35 years or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
But it's, just when you call that volume, and, I'd be calling, I think the most I called in one in-room is like 46 properties. But to go back to your question, the reason I've always enjoyed that, one, it is financially, it's successful if you've got volume, which is great. But the thing I've enjoyed the most about auctions is that gives me the market barometer right there and then.
Yeah.
Like you can, like, even if you look at the transaction numbers around auctions where you say the volume of a property, you look at the clearance rates, you look at the amount of properties that have been sold prior. I always look at the sold prior rate. That's more of a barometer to me than the clearance rate.
Yeah.
Particularly by category of houses and apartments.
Yep.
But you've got the luxury of an auctioneer. You're actually seeing, the bidding, whether it's, ferocious bidding or it's really timid bidding. You can see, like on the weekend, I had a couple of auctions where they had about 5 registered bidders on each one. The agent thought it was going to do a lot better than what it did. What was interesting is that on both those two properties, the first 3 buyers bid to the guide, and that was it. There was only 2 buyers that took it above the guide. So if one of those people didn't turn up, that's a very different outcome. Now, it still would have sold, probably, but nowhere near the price that it achieved through the competition of those 2 buyers. And I kind of see it as it's a great opportunity for me to assess the market instantly. But about the connection, like I go out of my way. I'm a different person when I'm in the car driving to my next auction. You're bipolar,
Yeah.
You got this switch where you're on, and I am like, I'm like the Terminator, looking and targeting each person and trying to assess who they are. Who is the person who's the, weakest link is not the, but the person who I think I can have the most influence on, whether it's the husband or the wife or whomever it is. I look at how they engage with each other. I look at how quickly they bid, all of those little things. And then I've got, 30,000 auctions and 30 odd years of experience to be able to then sort of decide, what's my one liner that I throw at them that's going to have some kind of impact. And that's the sort of, I love that, because I love the experimentation of that. I love the reaction that I get from it. But I'm just very privileged, really, to be able to see that firsthand and then be able to take that market knowledge into the other real estate stuff that I'm doing.
Coming to the comment you said there about the Terminator, you've scaled and led big organizations and big teams. What would be some advice you would have given to yourself, reflecting on it now? You've been acquired, and sold a couple of other businesses as well. What would be advice to yourself when you're in that pressure cooker moment of building the business and you're kind of like, I don't know if this is ever going to work out? Is it things like staying centered, doing things outside of work around like making sure you're exercising? What are those things that keep you grounded and keep you moving?
I think probably as much as you've got these great moments where you go, we did this startup and, we started from here and then we ended up here and this was our exit and all the rest of it. That's all great. The thing about it is I've actually got more pride in the journey than I do have the destination.
Yeah.
Because there were moments where, moments I wasn't proud of the way that I reacted to things. They're probably the things that I look back and I say to myself, I should have had more faith in what we were doing and where we were going. Like you second guess yourself all of the time.
Yeah.
I made some recruitment decisions that I should have thought more about, made them a bit too hasty. I also, things that I look back on now, particularly when we raised capital, I looked at, the plan that we put together, my idea of conservatism and the outcome of those things was very different.
Yeah.
So I certainly would be a bit more conservative on my uptake numbers and things like that. The other part of it too would be like, I guess on the raising capital, when you struggle for money and then you get cash and then you can finally do all those things, I would probably look at myself and be a lot more measured in the way that I deploy that. I got tied up into this whole, it's all about growth, and, profit doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I was really uncomfortable with that to begin with, because I've always been in businesses where
it's a completely different concept.
It is. It's crazy, right? But in today's world, even in the prop tech world today, like, getting to a point of profitability is not a nice to have, it's an essential thing. So I look back on that and think, there's decisions that I could have made to have arrived at that destination earlier and taken that pressure off myself and my team. And also, I guess, the founding shareholders and everyone that had backed us on that stuff. So I look back on those things and think I should have kept to my original mantra of that you're in business to make a profit. You never go broke making a profit.
Yep.
And I got tied into this whole world of, don't worry about that. Growth is more important than profitability. And I really would love to have gone back and had a conversation with myself to say, stay true to that mantra. But outside of that, personally, best thing I do is swim. It's where I do my best thinking.
Yep.
That detaches me from the rest of the world, but it also gives me time to think more openly about things where I think, I probably should have gone into the water a little bit more often in some of the moments. But they're moments, as you've got to have, because it changes you as a person and as a leader, and it shapes you for the next thing that you're prepared to get into.
I often think about it. It's like you're building the muscle. You're trying to build it and you reflect back on it now, and it's easy to say, I should have done it differently.
Yeah.
But when you're in the pressure cooker at that time, it's a completely different environment.
I love that muscle thing. I've said that before, like the pain of, tearing a muscle, like it's pain. Like you have to have the pain to get the growth.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, then, you're not doing enough. You've got to put more effort in.
It's like anything, whether you're running or doing gym, like work out at a gym or whatever it might be, you'll get better and better as you kind of push the limits of what you think is actually possible.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh, I agree.
Transitioning to investment into FOUNDIT, and we're really privileged to have you as an investor and an advisor as well as a part of the business. What was something that kind of stuck out to you as to why you're willing to part ways with your hard-earned money and choose to come on the journey with us and invest in the business?
Well, without, this is your podcast and I'm here with you, like you're the major part of that. Like, being associated with successful people helps you be successful, right?
Yep.
There's nothing unknown about that. But also too, I think that when we started talking about it, there was so many things that you and Joel were talking about that I absolutely I believe in as well.
Yeah.
And look, if I didn't, even though I'd want to back you and I would, I wouldn't be passionately involved in it like I am, because I sort of look at the whole buyer's agency space, and I remember doing a curiosity when you were like in the Ray White group. We'd have these conferences, you'd have to do presentations, and I did a curiosity, funnily enough, on buyer's agents, right? And I talked about the fact that you've got these, buyer's agents everywhere, but there's nothing that connects them together. We talked about a buyer's agency franchise. Funnily enough, we called it Domain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there was a moment where that we did have a bit of a thought as to whether we should talk to Domain about it. But this is when I think they were still Fairfax, and Domain was just Fairfax Digital. I think it was back in those days, so a long time ago. And that was only really, really new. But there wasn't there was nothing that it was. We looked at this graph and we said, well, if there's 100% of the commissions in the market, and half of them being done on the sales side, the other half has been done on the buyer's agency side. Well, what's the market share of that? And as you know, like it's 3% now or something like that.
So it's gone from 2 years ago to about 8%.
8%.
It's almost double.
So back
triples.
then, like it was sub 1%. Like it was tiny.
Yeah.
And so you look at this big half of the pie, and you look at the states, and although they've gone through a bit of a transitional stage, because of that, I always go to the Inman conferences. So you'd always hear about buyers agents and selling agents, and they're getting 6% fee, 3% each. So that was a philosophy. And so when you decided that you wanted to invest in this and make this your next career move and business, like it was a bit of a no-brainer for me, because I'd kind of had the historical interest, and then knowing that you and Joel were putting the smarts of it together and really just bringing something together that buyers agents need, but also I think that they want. It was an easy decision from my side.
It's been really interesting, like the amount of buyers agents that we're chatting to. A lot of the best ones, exactly to the point of what like traditionally is happening on the sell side, is really great buyers agents get to a point where they just can't write anymore because they're out of capacity.
Yeah.
And they've either got to invest by putting OpEx back into the business, or, for lack of a better term, just hiring more people.
Yeah.
Which actually hits profitability with no guarantee of actually getting better. But the thing we're actually doing is providing the technology, the research, the marketing to help them just be better at their end point. The moments that matter is what we're kind of starting to call it, which are human interactions. They can't be replicated. And we're obviously got a huge belief, the same as you, that if you've ever bought or sold real estate, it is very hard to think of a world where it can be done completely digital.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the data completely. It's actually about all the human components of coaching through someone on a divorce or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
The things that aren't on the piece of paper when you sign up the listing or you get the mandate. For a buyer
exactly.
agent.
But I guess that's the thing, is that, if the tech can replace all of the bits that don't require those skills, those human interactions, it just accelerates the capacity of that buyer's agent, and same with agents. And buyer's agents, I reckon too, they just haven't had the exposure for people to invest in technology that's specific to their craft, because it's different to being a sales agent. Like there's no doubt, and the skill set is transferable, but there's still two different skill sets.
Yeah, and you look at like on the sell side, there's 50,000 agents, 600,000 transactions, and there's 750 prop tech companies now. There's not a lot of tech that supports buyers agents, because they're at the beginning of that journey. You're starting to see it build.
Yeah,
and we've seen some stats around like 200 buyers agents entering the market a month. So it's a fast growing space. Why? Because buyers need help more than ever.
Yeah.
When you bought a property, and I've said this before, but when you bought a property 20 years ago, you pay $100,000 and you can repay the mortgage in 6.5 years. Now it's a 25-year commitment and it's a multi-million-dollar decision. Yet the process hasn't changed. You still base it off a handful of comparable sales and you jump blindly into it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think you'd be a good barometer. Like how many buyer's agents do you see coming to your auctions as well now versus 10 years ago?
Well, a lot more. And they're a lot younger too. I don't know if that's because I'm getting older. They all just look young. Yeah, there wouldn't be an auction. Maybe 2 out of 10 where I don't have someone who's represented.
Yeah.
So that's pretty low. And if I look back 10 years ago, it'd be the opposite. It'd be lucky to be 2 out of 10.
Moving into like, you're at the forefront. I know you've just come back from China. You've been to India recently. You're constantly going to Inman, which is the largest real estate conference in the world in San Francisco. What do you think is some of the insights you're seeing? Where's the market going? What do you think these trends are that are emerging?
Well, I mean, I think the thing, like we were talking about before, about the actual transaction itself, like there's no one really that's been through a purchase of a property or a sale of a property that says, hey, that was great. Like I had a fantastic experience. It was unreal. There was nothing I didn't know. I felt completely at ease through the whole process, said no one ever. And that's not a dig at the industry at all. I mean, it's just a fact of life.
Yeah.
The thing is that if, with what you're doing with FOUNDIT and improving that buyer experience, that's going to improve that whole relationship between the seller, their seller's agent, and the buyer and the buyer's agent.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if that can bring greater transparency and trust to the transaction, then that's a great thing for the industry.
Yep.
And to me, it's anything that throughout that process, whether you're a selling agent or a buyer's agent, or you're a buyer or seller in the process, the more transparency and efficiency that you can bring to the process, then the smoother that transaction is going to be. And technology has to play a major role in that. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that that's not going to replace the human element, at least not today with any of the tech that I've seen or where it's going. But I do think that you look at, you've got mortgage brokers and buyer's agents as well. Like there's a lot that happens between those two.
100%, yeah.
But I can see them kind of coming together in a much tighter way. And I do think also too the technology is available right across the transaction environment, where verticals that were always wanting to be introduced along that process can be more easily introduced through technology, and the collaboration that's there now, I think, between the technologists and agents and technologists and buyers agents to be able to make those vertical integrations really valuable for the consumer experience.
100%. We were reading an article recently, Joel and I, with one of the big VCs out of the US, and they're saying rather the pivot's moving, like technology is becoming easier and easier to build. Like both you and I are not coders, but we can prompt AI now to go and build us a pretty quick website and a pretty quick prototype as well out of the gate with no coding experience. And what they're often saying now is like, it's going to be harder and harder to become a point of difference just on a pure tech play. So rather than trying to sell the tech to Goldman Sachs, become the Goldman Sachs that has technology enabled behind it as well, which is a big belief and obviously a big bet that we're making within the business and the innovation that we're going after. If just coming to like some advice, your day zero, all your learnings you've got, what's one of the first things you're doing if you were going again on another business that you'd be doing out of the gate?
I would have a much clearer budget. I would be much more conservative on what I would be needing for that business in terms of the budget to launch it. I'd be very clear on exactly the market that we were going after and knowing as much detail about that as possible. And I would also, I'd probably record myself a message right now to myself as I go through that process to listen to and remind myself of. And that's really just to have faith in your plan. Because look, the thing is that, when you start something, you've got so much enthusiasm and you've got so much momentum that sits inside of that. And then after that moment's over, it's the motivation that kind of dwindles away, that you want to make sure that you can carry that original sort of thought process forward and continue that through. And that's, you second guess yourself all the time. I think that's a good thing for people who don't. I think that's where they come unstuck. But, second guess yourself, refocus and move on. And probably the last thing really is just, if you make a bad decision, that's okay. Like, you got to expect that, but you just got to keep making decisions.
Yep.
The worst thing, and I see business owners all the time, they can't make decisions, or the decision-making process isn't clear. So it puts them in a state of flux.
Yep.
And that's the worst and most dangerous position to be in. Like,
100%.
Make decisions, move on. You're never going to get 100% of them right, but at least you're making the decisions.
We've just done something recently, you should be happy to know as an investor, where we've taken our model, and it pays to have a business partner's investment banking background because he stays close to the numbers the whole time. But we've ripped out what are the key numbers that we need to care about most, what are the metrics that matter within our business, and use that as our North Star. So when the reality is, inside of any new business, particularly venture-backed one, is there's gold everywhere.
Yeah.
You got to figure out which piece of gold's worth picking up that's actually going to have an impact on what are the numbers you're actually trying to hit as well. So we've been spending a lot of time on just extracting it and distilling it down to 10 key things that we're just going to focus on for the first 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
Because we know if we do those things right, then everything else will fall into play as well.
It's so true, because you get these outside influences and they look like great opportunities, and you get excited about those, and that can kind of steer you away from where your core focus is. So
100%.
It's good to crystallize all of those. The amount of times that we were just sort of looking around and go, we could do that. Oh, we could do that. Oh, we could do that. And, we burned a lot of time and a bit of money doing that too.
Yeah. So we got a lightning round just to finish things off.
Right.
So favorite auction tip?
Is to bid with absolute confidence and bid fast, which is the opposite advice that most people get, and that's why it's good advice.
Yeah, good. I actually got some advice the other day that you should bid against yourself at an auction.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you know what your numbers are and you know what you're prepared to commit to.
Is. Yeah,
absolutely.
A book or a podcast that changed the way you thought about things?
I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I do listen to podcasts. I like the Acquired podcast. I think for anyone that's looking to start a business, Acquired is a great podcast because it talks about the history. It also makes you feel good as a founder because you realize that you're not alone. And books, probably the most influential book I've ever read, I was forced to read, was called Good to Great. That has shaped my leadership philosophy, as well as a lot of my operational planning, and certainly my recruitment.
Yeah, beautiful. Next one is real estate trend that drives you mad.
I just I don't know if it's a trend or it's just arrogance or whatever it is, but this blurting of how successful salespeople are on social media, showing people their cars and. We don't need that stuff. And if I see another profile that has the word integrity in it, it just makes me sick. So I'd love to see that stop. And just, let's be real. What do we do? Well, what we do is that we help someone find their home. We help someone sell possibly their most valuable asset.
Yep.
What the most important thing is that we're helping people get on with their lives around, shelter, which is, one of the most important things to that person.
100%.
How many sales we make, whether it was a record sale or how much, even worse, when someone promotes what commission they've made. That part of it particularly just disgusts me.
Yep.
And your customers don't care. In fact, they don't even know. They don't know whether 100 million was good, bad, or indifferent.
Yep.
But if you actually said, look, we helped 15 people find their dream home this month, that's much more appropriate and much more real to your future customer than anything else you can say.
100%. People first, property second.
Absolutely.
Industry. The last question, just to wrap us up off, would just be, what would be your advice to someone who's thinking about starting a business or about to found a business? What would be one piece of advice you'd give to them?
I think before you even start that, I think you've got to go and talk to people who have been through that process and have that conversation to say, what are the things that you'd do again? What are the things that you'd avoid? Absolutely. Know exactly your market, know exactly what your numbers are. And also have that, like I was saying earlier, where you've got to be really clear about why you're doing this and not to lose the passion that sits behind that.
Yep.
And also not be influenced by people who come along on that journey with you. I think you and I both started with an expectation not just to solve a problem for ourselves, but to solve a problem for others.
Yep.
And, if money's the motivator, I think it's destined for failure.
Completely agree.
You've got to be passionate about it. The money will always come if what you've got is valuable to people who need that service.
Well, Pete, firstly, thank you for investing and backing us in the business.
Pleasure.
And for coming on the podcast today.
Oh, mate, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.